keep your publishing. Oh my God, I mean, that's the one thing we all let go, and I didn't do that, thank God, but a lot of artists, they sign a deal and, you know, I give you $1 million and I say, well, look, here's the deal. Your 10 songs that you release on this record, I'll basically own 50% of them, and here's $1 million. And most guys would do that because they probably came from nothing, but I didn't do it because of the experience I went through with Nasty Mix. I was able to hang on to the publishing, and that brings me back to your question. In, I'd say around 2000, 2001, we started getting phone calls from Universal. And Universal is, we have a co-publishing deal for Baby Got Back, but I own 87% of the song. I wouldn't give it up. Well, Universal said there's this new thing called ringtones, and everybody's in there. I said, what the hell's a ringtone? You know, you call a phone and all this shit happens. I'm like, yeah, whatever. You know, I didn't think nothing about it, but I said, well, go ahead, do what you want to do. You know, put the stuff out there. So Ricardo calls me one day. Ricardo's my manager, and he goes, dude, we got a check for like 300 grand. What happened? I'm like, oh, I didn't do nothing. I just told these guys they could use these ringtone things, and I realized, whoa, shit, there's money in this stuff. So cats are coming back now, buying old school songs and putting them on their ringers. So I started producing more of them. I started doing offshoots. I took like Baby Got Back and made a specific ringtone of it where I'm rapping about answering the phone and just crazy stuff like that. But that wouldn't be able to happen if I didn't own my publishing and stuff like that. I mean, you listen to the stories people like Little Richard tell, and it's sad, because these guys, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here, but they don't own their publishing.
So what kind of, to somebody starting out, what kind of deal would be realistic for them to work out with the label that might approach somebody and want to put their music out? Yeah,
that's a good question, because right now, anybody in this room that doesn't have a deal, that goes to sign a deal, you ain't getting all your publishing. Because there's some unwritten rule, and I hate the record business, in case you didn't notice. There's some unwritten rule in this game that says 25% of your publishing has to go to the label no matter what. And every time I ask, why is that? Oh, it just is. You know, and if you don't sign it, you don't get paid. But the label will not try to take that remaining 75%. That remaining 75%, we're so used to getting screwed in the ass on this that we call it 100%. We're just used to it. So the 100% of the 75 is power. It really is, because, and the labels will let you keep that. It's the publishing companies that will try to get that from you. They'll come to you after you ink your record deal. They're going to come to you and say, well, look, we really like that new song you got, and you know, we'd like to administer publishing on it. And I didn't know what administer publishing meant.
So what is that? What are they doing?
Basically, they're doing what you're supposed to do. They're going to take your song when it sells, and they're going to call everybody that collects money, everybody that makes money on your shit. They're going to say, we need that publishing money in. Money that's going to come to you anyway. By law, you have to get it. So the only thing a publishing company the only thing they can really do for you, in my opinion, is to place your songs in stuff like movies, commercials, ringtones, things of that sort. That's where you make money. They are not beneficial to you, in my opinion, at all if they are not performing. Most of them do not perform. Most of them just sit around and let's say Starbucks uses your song in a commercial. Starbucks pays them the money they would otherwise pay you. Mm-hmm. They collect that money on your behalf. They take 25%, 30%, whatever deal you guys worked out, and they send you the rest every 6 months. That's it.
So you're talking about 25% of that 75?
Of the 75, yeah. Yeah, the other 25, you just, but now here's the good thing. If they're a hard-working publishing company, and they go out and place Baby Got Back, say, in Charlie's Angels, give you an example. The record company, if you re-record it, here's the thing, if you own your publishing, and they take Baby Got Back, Rick Rubin would get a piece of it for master use. However, if Charlie's Angels comes back and says, look, we're offering $200,000 to use that song, but Rick Rubin wants $50,000 for master use, we'll give you $25,000 to re-record it, because you own the publishing, you just re-record it. I ain't supposed to be saying this stuff, but you re-record it and you put it out there and you make your money, man. As an artist, there's nothing wrong with making money. Don't feel guilty about it, because if you don't, somebody else will. Believe me.
So explain what you mean when you say Rick Rubin owns the mastering, gets the mastering rights to it.
Yeah, that's
something that might not be understood.
Yeah, when I say publishing, it's your written works, your lyrics, And cats that are producing on drum machines, because that's what I do, don't think that that's not your music. That's your music. And that's the written work. But the actual master is the recording. So let's say you take that music, you take those lyrics, you put them together, you make this song, that song is put out by his company. He owns that actual master, that recording, but you own the written work. So if Starbucks says, we want to use that song, but we don't want this guy, he wants $1 million, we want him out of the loop, we'll pay you 300 grand, which is what you're going to get from him anyway, let's be honest. You can then re-record your works. You can change the music a little bit, change stuff a little bit, because you own the publishing, you can record it, and he's out of the mix completely. And that's the difference between master and publishing. Yeah, I've been screwed a lot, so I know.
Yeah, it's good. You know, us people starting out definitely need to know the ways to avoid the pitfalls.
And I learned it from listening to Chuck D, Ice-T, Run from Run DMC. I mean, these guys gave me a lot of information coming up, because when I was coming up, I could care less. It's like, man, I'm gonna get a check with more than 1 0. This is gonna be awesome. You know what I mean? I didn't matter to me.
Excellent. Yeah. So after you did end up re-recording "Baby Got Back."
A few times. I've done it a whole lot of different ways. Yeah. Pimp it. What the hell? You know?
And you figure you own what, 80 something?
87.5.
87.5.
87.5. So now I own 87.5% of the Baby Got Back album, which is Mac Daddy, and the album after that. The rest of the album I own 100%. I have 6 albums, so I own all of those other records. So like when it came to the ringtones, when I did Posse on Broadway, 100%. When E40 re-recorded it, 100%. Now when I did the Target commercial, I own 87.5. They come to me first, and then we go to Universal, and then Universal does what they're supposed to do, because they got to earn that 13.5% or whatever. They went or 12.5. They went and cut the deal, and they get a lot of money, boy, when they know they're going to get only 13%. They're like, God damn, we got to massage this, squeeze it out. And I re-recorded the thing for Target, because when they went to Rick Rubin for Master, he wanted 300-400 grand. So we re-recorded it. And that's the advantage of owning your own publishing. You can do stuff like that.
Excellent. Is it possible to recapture your publishing after the fact if you've given it up?
It's hard. It's hard because a lot of times labels hold it for, it's like 20 years, I think, is normal to keep your stuff 20 years. And sometimes it's 20 years after you're fully recouped, which is even worse. So in other words, if I give you $1 million up front, say for your record, and there's creative ways they have of showing you haven't recouped. Oh God, that's a whole other subject. But basically the clock doesn't start ticking till I get my $1 million back. And that could take 5 years. So you might be talking 25 years before the publishing reverts back to you. Well, by that time, you're on Oprah talking about how poor you are, and then some other asshole comes up and gives you, 100 grand and takes you for another 20 years. I mean, and that's how bad it is. But that's the business, really. I mean, it's just that bad.
So when you're talking about recouping, basically what happens when you sign a deal, they are more or less loaning you.
Yep, they're loaning you. I used to call
bad interest rate.
Oh yeah, I used to call it style points. That's just style money. You go out and look really cool and look really rich, but you're really living on somebody else's dollars.
And you have to make that money back.
Yeah, and now it's not as bad as it used to be. I mean, I was watching What's Love Got to Do with It? I saw like Ike Turner had to go do concerts and get money and give this up and sell cars. Now it's not that bad, but what it is if I were to give you $1 million advance for your record, as your record sells, all that money goes to me. 100% of those royalties go to me as the label until you earn back that $1 million. And that sounds cool until you look at how they do things. I'll give you an example of what record companies do, and they'll never admit this. This guy's an independent promoter. He promotes records, say, on the East Coast, New York, Philly, DC, Baltimore, whatever. That's what he does. He charges me 40 grand to work the East Coast for your record, right? I tell him to send you, well, me really, but send your manager a bill for 200 grand, all right? He only charged me 40. I'm gonna give him another 20 to tell that lie. So here's 60 grand, tell him you charged me 200 grand. What does that mean to you? Now you owe me 1.2, not 1. So when I get, the rest of that money is gravy. I'm making money and he's making money, and that's what I hate about the business. It's sad, but that's what goes on. You know, the payola issues, paying, you know, radio stations to play you. A lot of companies got tagged for that, you know. So what Clear Channel did to get around that is they go and take you, the artist, because you're not making any money, because he and I just kind of screwed you out of another 120 grand or whatever. So you go and you say you're in Chicago. Clear Channel owns a station in Chicago. Payola is illegal. In other words, what I mean by that, I can't give him 20 grand to pay the big station in Chicago to play your record. Those days are gone. But what Clear Channel can do, because they own the record, the radio station, they can say, you do this show that you would otherwise charge me $20,000 for, you're gonna do it free so I can play your record. That's still payola, but the artist gets screwed, you know, and those are the things about the business that nobody talks about. Because if an artist signed to a label talks about it, he probably won't be an artist signed to a label the next morning. So that's the kind of stuff that you really have to watch out for.
That still goes on, I mean, to this day.
Oh, man, yeah.
It's recently, there's been a lot of stuff coming out about exactly what you say, where artists go to the radio station, and the radio station will have a special concert, you know, to promote the station, where the artist is basically doing it for nothing.
A Cube Summer Jam here locally. I mean, I'm not knocking Cube. I'm friends with Eric Powers and these guys, but let's just talk facts. At a Cube, if you go to Cube Summer Jam, you'll notice that they'll have one anchor artist. Your lead artist, say Snoop Dogg, whatever. Snoop comes, he's a closing act. Snoop's getting paid. All the other artists, you'll notice they're fairly new artists, and they have new records, and they need radio play. None of them get paid. They get a hotel room and they get a plane flight. They come up, they do the show. Each one of those artists would probably otherwise be getting $5,000, $10,000 a night. And that's payola, and it's legal, but it's still payola. It's still, the record company is basically paying Clear Channel. Now, if Clear Channel or Cube was doing this show and truly about the music, the show should be free. Or just enough to pay the expenses, but it's not. They charge you $50 a ticket and the artists get nothing. And that's the way it works. Now, I'm not saying that like, ooh, that's so bad, because if I was a new artist and I'm gonna get heavy rotation, I'm gonna do it. And I'm gonna get rich. I mean, I remember when Genuine came out with the song Pony, and he played up here 3 times before he had a record out. And I was like, man, this guy's really getting screwed over. And then when the song came out, he was #1 on Cube. So, necessary evil, I guess.
It's sort of a gamble that the airplay is going to push the sales up.
Oh, dude, let me tell you, I went to Houston, Texas one time, and I did a show like that. I call them payola shows. I did a payola show, and the day of the show, I heard my voice on the radio. It was like, makes a lot tonight in Houston, blah, blah, blah. The next day, gone. They didn't play me again. So now I got a new tactic I pull. It's like with my new artists, I tell them, well, you want Out of Sight to do a show in Yumfuck, Kansas somewhere. I tell them, I say, okay, I'll tell you what you're gonna do. You're gonna play his record for a month leading into the show, and then he'll come down and do it. That's about the best you can ask, really. And if they play it for a month, hopefully by then it catches fire. Once it catches fire, they have to play it. If the powers that be at Clear Channel say play it.
So if somebody, you know, has a choice, you know, with the internet and the way that things are now, it's a lot easier to kind of do things on your own as an independent, set things up. I mean, what do you think the advantages are of doing that as opposed to trying to get with a major label?
Well, the advantages are huge. Problem is, I don't think artists have truly figured out how to do it.
Right.
I mean, the internet has opened so many doors, and I think we're all collectively scared to walk through them. We're scared of what might be on the other side. Well, what's the worst thing that can happen? You didn't sell records on Tuesday. Well, you didn't sell any Monday either. Don't worry about it. I mean, but I think if you can succeed independently, and success on an independent level is a lot different than on a major. If you get on a major label right now and sell 200,000 records, you're a failure, which is kind of stupid. But on an indie level, I mean, you're going from making $1 a record to about $8 a record. You know what I mean? So you figure you put $2 of that back into yourself or back into the artist, you know, you're making $5, $6 a record. If you sell 20,000 units, record labels notice that. Believe me, Linkin Park tried to get signed for years, kept getting turned down, kept getting turned down. Linkin Park went and released their record on the internet. Warner Brothers picked them up. Warner Brothers didn't even remember that they had dropped them before. You know, they didn't even remember that. We didn't like you guys. It's like, oh, you guys are moving units. And I think you can live in a town anywhere, you know, and you move some units, they find you. I mean, I just signed a deal with Notting Hill in England, and he found out about what I was doing, you know, on the indie level or getting ready to do it. And he's like, he wants to touch it now, you know. So they will find you when you make some noise. So and plus, if you do it right, and if you succeed even a little bit, the biggest problem we have, and I say we, I mean the artists, is that we have a tendency to take the money, spend it all, and not think about the next project. So when the next project comes, you're like, how the hell are we gonna pay for this? Well, you might want to sell that fucking Bentley you just bought, you know what I mean? So I mean, that's the kind of problems that we have. But if the money's managed right, and you succeed on the independent level, the majors will come running, but you may not want them. I mean, if you're making $7, $8 a record and you're moving 100,000 units every 4 months, do the math. I mean, you're gonna go from $6, $7 a record to about $1.50 a record. And then don't forget, this independent guy over here is gonna still be pocketing a lot of your cash. And they do the same thing with video producers. The video may have really cost 100, but they tell you 200. You don't have to deal with that on the indie level because you control your own destiny. So most hugely successful independent artists never go major. Perfect example is Tech Nine. Tech Nine's an artist out of Kansas City, probably the best rapper on the planet. His skills are just off the Richter scale, and he has been doing it forever. His audience is lock solid. He came to Seattle a couple weeks ago and just used flyers, sold the showbox out. You have artists that are on the radio every day can't sell the showbox out. And he's making a lot of money. He's making about $7 a record doing it, and he just turned Universal down. I was like, wow, how much did they offer you? He said, it was a lot, but it wasn't enough. And that's the luxury you have when you do it yourself. Because it used to be back in the day, you needed the label. You needed the label to pay for your studio. But man, come on, we could all use Reason, Pro Tools. There's so much stuff out here now that we can do it ourselves. So that part of it, they're not even necessary. Only thing they're good for is promoting the record. That's it. And if you can do that even a third as well as they can, you make way more money. So fuck them.